Just open it up. Hello, everyone. This is Carla from Rehan Allahwala's World of Connections. And I am here today. I feel very honored to be able to talk to Harrison Klein about his life, his work, and his journey. And he started life off in a world of autism. And look at where he is now. We are sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which is an online organization promoting peace one conversation at a time. Harrison, can you please introduce yourself?
Well, I am Mr. Big Bang from the planet Xenon. I have come to Earth for truth, love, and the American way, and I fight justice, criminals, all the. So I'm just in a space here where I'm a spiritual teacher, and I just have fun, enjoying working with people and consciousness. I have a big mission in life, and I want may see that mission come to fruition. Oh, there's a poem. Want to see that mission come to fruition, and it's a part of the awakening process. So my journey took me from deep unawareness to from deep pain, from deep difficulty, from in non-communication, from misery into a space of pure awakening, joy, love, and sensational experience, successful, sensational, dynamic, you know, a deep, gigantic revolution in consciousness. So, in the autistic state, there is no consciousness; it's simply reactive to irritants, and there's a whole other beingness than what normal people experience when they have their chakras open, when they have their eyes open, when they have their sensations and feelings available to them. So, there's a very different experience from the earlier part and the miserable part of my first 28 years to the current part, which is completely pure bliss, love, humor, fun, dynamic success. So that's been the direction and opening of my unfolding. So what do you want to ask me?
How did you how did you go or become aware to go from that autistic way of life to where you are now? Because that takes awareness. That someone had to guide you out of that.
Nobody guided me out of that at all. It was a moment of grace. It was what the Japanese call a satori. It was a sudden enlightenment or a sudden awakening. I was sitting in a room in Cleveland, Ohio in 72 or something like that. I don't even know it's all blended together. Back then, I was sitting in this room, middle of the night, sketching on a pad. And basically, without any warning, my consciousness was yanked out of my body. My autistic consciousness was yanked out of my body. I was sent spinning in a tube of white light through the universe. It was sort of a big bang thing. I was getting all this amazing energy. The velocity was nearly the speed of light. I was watching birth and die. I was watching galaxies spin. I was hearing choirs of angels on colors coming at me, and just at this velocity, which without any knowledge, I have no construct or knowledge of how long I was in that experience. It could have been 2 minutes, it could have been 2 days, but I was in that experience for long enough to have a spontaneous healing. And then at one point I was deposited back in my body after this enormous influx of energy and eruption of 28 years of suppressed emotion. And when I came to in a sort of a new, I was a different being. I could hear in 20 yards away what I couldn't hear across the table the minute before this happened. I could see clearly pulsations of energy. I could see the different vibrations of reds and greens and yellows and oranges and grays, and I could actually see them pulsating, just like you would in an aura, but only in much greater detail. I could at that point. I had my body turned from numb to sensitive. In the autistic state, it was neuropathic, and so had a neuropathy. And whenever anybody came within 6 or 8 feet of me, I experienced stabbing pains in my ribs, and all I wanted to do was get out of there. I couldn't touch anybody. I couldn't talk to anybody. I had no conversations almost till I was 30 years old. But after this experience, my whole life changed on a dime. So when I came out of that, I came out of that with advanced powers, psychic type powers like clairaudience, clairvision, sentience, or clairvoyance, etc., etc. I had all these additional kind of powers that I never would have even believed existed in the autistic state. I couldn't even talk to anybody. I hardly had a conversation with anybody until I was 30. And, it was just like jumping onto a moving train from a standing position. You're just holding on for life. And so the new consciousness made me a different person. I wasn't the person I was the first 28 years of my life. There was no remnants of that human being left, and I was an entirely new being. And my physicality was familiar to people that I knew, but my consciousness they hadn't totally revolutionized. So, suddenly I was articulate, I was fun, I was interesting. I couldn't even talk before, and I became, my intelligence grew and grew, and I was able to perceive beyond the capacity of, most normal, now normal human beings. But, my life was a very, very different experience before and after. It's nothing that I did. It was just simply a moment of grace. I mean, in my dark state, um, it was like a bad cell phone. I heard like maybe every third word of what people were saying. I was trying to piece together what they were saying. I maybe saw about maybe 30% of what was actually in front of me. Everything was like in moving layers of fog. And that's what it was like in my autistic state. And then my body was incredibly numb to any touch. In fact, it was painful for anybody. They had what Eckhart Tolle called a pain. And so after that experience happened without warning, without anything, no mentors, no nothing like that. I couldn't even, I could hardly connect with anybody, let alone have a mentor. I mean, I was lucky to be, the least bit alive. And then this thing happened to me out of nowhere, and suddenly I was a different human being. So obviously I was chosen for something. I don't know what that is. I don't know how many people go through that. I do know that people have what they call satori. For 2 years after that happened to me, I did everything I could to find out what that healing was because it felt so unfamiliar. I had no clue what that was. It wasn't in the same universe. So what no autistic person can tell you, because until they come out of it, is that they are in what I would now deem sort of a parallel universe. And what's happening is that you are getting stimuli from multiple dimensions simultaneously, and so it's impossible to focus. Possible because you have no ability to center or focus your attention, and so you have moments of being able to smile or whatever, but you don't have any real understanding of what's going on. You have no real connection to what's happening. You're sort of piecing things together as you go. So the autistic state was high drama, and it was completely structured and architectured around fear. And so, I will tell you this much, and this is all I know, is that the moment prior to this sudden experience, um, I had a thought and I said, what if what I'm experiencing all of my life is really a different form of love? And then at the very next moment, I opened up. That whole thing opened up, and I became a different human being. If in fact there was anything there to begin with, and it's just this is all a dream anyway. So we wake up from it at certain points when we've had enough, when we just reach our threshold, and I had reached my threshold. And if I had anything to do with it, I didn't. It was just a moment of grace. And thank you, thank you, thank you. God, I could not imagine where my life would be right now if I hadn't had that experience. But I've been in a constant state of bliss and love and joy ever since. 95% of my experience is joyful, blissful, and intelligent now. I do have a few off hours here or there, but I recalibrate just like that. I don't, my body can no longer stand to be outside of joy. It can't stand to be outside of humor. It can't stand to be outside of intelligence. And in the autistic state, you're completely devoid of all those things. Does that help? Give you an accurate picture or a better picture?
It's amazing. I have taught autistic children, and
They can't articulate. They don't know what's going on. They don't know that it's not normal.
right, they have no idea. And it really upset me when I saw, the psychologist will say, well, he's acting out. He needs to go into timeout. And they put him into a padded cell.
Well,
And
there's a complete misguided understanding of how to deal with that. And psychologists are simply about making things comfortable for everybody else. The direction of autistic psychologists is to, they think they're helping by doing these uh, disciplines and enforcements of rules, but they're not. They in point of fact do the opposite. What an autistic child needs, what Avi Kaufman did in Sunrise at Campobellum, and that is that autistic child needs to be followed in his attention in his attention span. So he's being fed enormous amounts of stimuli from unknown sources. So what you're seeing in your normal state there and the physical plane, he is seeing multiple different things up. And you cannot force his attention by discipline, by physical pain, by shock, by any of those other things. That doesn't work. What you need to do is to make his experience alive for your experience. So what happens is if you follow, so let's just say he's severely autistic and he's banging his head against the wall. So severely autistic, you go up to him, you bang your head against the wall with him. He senses that telepathically that you're on his side, and he gets attention for a second or two or four or five or whatever the case may be. Then he goes back and to banging his head, or if he spins plates, or if he jumps, or if he rocks back and forth, or whatever the case may be. If you do the imitation, letting him know that those in authority are following him, his attention will emerge out of that state, and there's no other way, to the best of my knowledge. And so, I can only tell you that my experience was nothing like that, and my experience was definitely cosmic. I mean, I was in different worlds, and point of fact, a traveler through different dimensions. If I could articulate what a different dimension was, and I can't, but if I could articulate what a different dimension is, that's where autistic people reside. They don't live in the same dimensions as what we call normal, on the physical plane here. So they're in different experiences, which they can't articulate because they don't know it. They don't have any way to articulate it. They don't know what the opposite experience is, except in their relationship with other people that are around them. And they have already, because they're in constant state of depression and fear. Does that make any sense?
It does. And I only know that from my experience of working with these children.
So
But
you
how does my experience of working with autistic children?
before that, you what about your experience?
I know what you're talking about from my experience.
Okay.
My question is how can we eat? Well, it's never going to be easy to reach an autistic child.
The
But
only one way that you, I don't know of any other way, and that's by pure love, by them that you love them enough to allow them to lead in the relationship. The only way that I'm aware of. And I have been through this, I'm telling you, 28 years or 20. So if you try to discipline an autistic child, he is resistant. He'll always be resistant. And he may behave all right, but he's internally totally resistant to all that.
do you really think the medications that they give to an autistic child help them?
No, medications are, I'm totally against almost all medication. They take you, they chemically imbalance you so that you can be acceptable to other people, and they deny what is you. So, all these antidepressants, all these antipsychotics, they may help for a little while from making people from hurting themselves or whatever, but they are not an answer. And they have no long-term benefits except to make the people around them more comfortable by dating their consciousness that these kids already have. They do have an incredible consciousness because their awareness is multidimensional.
What do you mean by that?
It means they can see beyond what you and I see. What you and I in our normal state, they have experiences of other beings. They have experiences of other types of energy that we don't see. They have experiences of other types of sounds and whatever comes into senses. They don't have the same experiences as a 3D person, as a third dimensional person. So, and they don't know that they don't have those. The only way you know that you don't have it is when you've emerged from the situation. After you've emerged, you can understand what went on. But while you're in it, no way you can articulate it because it doesn't make any sense. They're being fed multiple stimuli simultaneously, and they have nowhere to focus because they can't. They are in 1 second. They probably get 6 different kinds of energies. So. I don't know how to explain that, but that's all I can tell you to the best of my ability at this moment.
Did Do you know this from your experience of your emergence, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, when I emerged, I was able to see for the first time in my life, and I had a clarity that was totally different than in the autistic state, and totally different than the people around me. I had a spiritual awakening in a way that was you know over magnificent. It was union with source. It was union with God. So whatever that was, I was chosen for something amazing, whatever that was. And God knows I've wasted it all, but shit, I'm trying.
Well, did you really waste it, or is it you needed to be in that cocoon in order to be where you are now?
My awakening is nowhere near what I could be doing. When I say I've wasted, it just means that there's so much more I could have done and do. But you know, I, I've chosen to be partially party person in my younger years. Have chosen to waste a lot of my time. Those things are not what I was chosen to do. I was chosen to be in a higher state of consciousness and lead other people into that thing. And sometimes I denied that process because I was able to. I wasn't able to, but because I was able to, I could say no to a bunch of things. So part of my time and part of my life I've wasted. Most people go through somewhat wasted lives. They don't have control of their energy, their focus, their time, their experiences, their influence, their ability to really see deeply, to contemplate, to meditate, to experience higher forms of the soul and all that. We don't have that until we emerge from our sleeping state. Autism is a deep sleeping state, and it is a reaction of absolute resistance. Everything is pushed away. The only thing that is okay about it is that people that the life process of that person is that they still want to survive the plane, but that's how but the internal experience, at least my internal experience, was a total pushing away of all experience. you know I couldn't talk to anybody. I didn't want to be touched by anybody. I didn't have any conversations. I was in pure misery. Everything I contemplated was what was wrong with me and everything and everybody else, and I couldn't even say that to get it to release it. I couldn't even say it out loud to release it. So, I was in a living hell. What can I tell you? Like being in prison in your own body and, everything being shut down. It's a total shutdown except your survival mechanism.
Don't you think many people are still very shut down, although they haven't, even people who are not autistic?
To varying degrees, yes, to varying degrees. We all enlighten sooner or later, that this lifetime or other lifetimes or whatever the case may be, or maybe at the end of our lifetime, we all enlighten. And that's what the awakening process is. You wake up from sleep, which is darkness. You move into another state of being in which your experience is understanding that everything that you are going through, no matter what it is coming from you. It's not something you're experiencing, it's coming from the inside of you. And you have access to what creates that. And then you have access to whether you accept it or deny it. It's very much like it's like your metabolism. You can eat what you want, but your metabolism does its own thing outside of your control. It just goes through and it releases its enzymes and its chemicals and all that. Most people go through the life releasing their enzymes and chemicals, and they don't even know what they're putting in their body. I'm not talking about food. I'm talking about everything. In the awakening process, there is no body. There is just a vehicle of movement. It's a whole other experience. And, there are a lot of awake people on this planet, millions, I would probably say. But very few people talk about it, and they don't. In fact, the very first thing that happened when I had my awakening was that I was told not to speak to anybody. I was told by this source voice, if you will, just celestial experience, to not discuss this or open that up with anybody. And for years I wasn't able to do that. I was given instructions not to, just to be who I was and go about my life as I now had it. But yes, I saw things other human beings would kill for. In the Bible, where Jesus said, you would be arraigned greater than Solomon in all of his glory, and all the wealth in the world couldn't buy you what you were seeing. Well, it's like that. That's what sort of an awakened experience is. There's nothing you can describe that is akin to the real experience. So what that is, for example, if I told you, if let's say you were blind at birth, and I tried to describe the color red to you, it would be an impossible visualization for you. You wouldn't have a clue what I'm talking about. So then the enlightened state or the higher state of consciousness is sort of like that. You can talk about it all you want to describe it, but you won't really know until you actually see it or to feel it. It's like trying to tell people what the taste of honey is before they've ever tasted it. You can describe it all you want, but you won't know what it's like until you have it, until it's crossed your lips. Does that make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense because the experience and the knower are together.
There is no difference.
Right.
Right.
So, how did it, when you first awakened, did you go to your mom and dad and say, hi, how are you? Or were you living at home?
No, I wasn't living at home, and I just carried on my regular life, whatever that was. At that point, I was in art school. I went to art school every day. And, I just lived by myself in a tiny little apartment, for which was all I could afford. Most of it was being, supplemented by my parents and, whatever loans I could get. And, I didn't have any friends. I had nobody to talk to. I just kept my life on. My life was still in the same momentum, but suddenly I could see things. Suddenly I was a different being, and suddenly, I was, you know, alive. I felt totally awake and alive. I felt all this amazing energy in me, which I couldn't even tell you what that was. It was energy, but I had no idea that it was energy. I just was a state of being that I saw coming from me. What can I tell you? So, it's like you talk about what enlightenment is. It's an illumination. So you're like a light bulb that shines out, and you recognize the extent of your awareness of that light. So, but you don't tell anybody because that's not theirs to tell. You cannot describe the state. I mean, I can describe it, but it makes no sense to talk about it. That's why they say he who knows, doesn't doesn't discuss. So,
Well, true. Spiritual experiences are so personal
it's
that
mystical. It's total mystical. What happens is that you penetrate the mystery of the universe, and you know what the universe does? It's always trying to escape. No matter how deep you go, it tells you and it shows you that there's a lot deeper to go, or how high you go. So the universe is always trying to escape. What you do grasp, it then moves away from you. And so it's a very mystical experience. It's a mystery experience. The universe does not want to be fully known. Will reveal lots of stuff to you, but when it reveals stuff, it then moves further into the background, into the distance. But the process of awakening, whatever that is for most people, brings the background forward. So in the 3D state, our attention is focused. So we can focus on one thing at a time. In the autistic state, you can't focus on anything at a time except maybe for moments here and there. In the higher states, what happened is that it's like if you've ever noticed a camera where, the lens, focuses into the background and then the foreground goes blurry, and then you focus into the foreground and the background goes blurry. In the awakened state, the foreground and the background are the same thing. So you notice everything. You are in the midst of it all. So the energy is not separated by focus. Does that mean? I don't know if that makes any sense. It's hard to explain that stuff, but
it makes sense to me, but I've had my own experiences. You were living at home and you just continued, you were living alone and you just continued your life? Did you do any therapy to help you become more comfortable with
Now,
where you were?
when you're touched by God, you think you need therapy after that?
No, no, not really. Now I know you're married now. When did you meet your wife and how?
We're going to be celebrating our 10th year in November, and we met online. I think we were both on a dating site at one point, and somehow or other, I was kind of I appeared in one of her match things, and she called me, and we got together, and we've hardly ever been apart since. She's a soulmate, and a really, really deep love. I can't even imagine a better experience. So we're happy together. We love each other's company. We hang out together. No separation. It's one soul and two bodies. It's an experience that is, what most people. It's both romantic and sexual and fun and collaborative and business and money and everything. So there's very little separation from all that. So again, I've been blessed. I have been blessed in the most profound ways. And regardless of what I experience, that blessing will stay with me as a eternal piece of the consciousness and awareness that I am. So there's no escaping it. Once you've been stretched to this dimension, you can't go back. It's not even possible. So it's not the way the universe works. But the one thing I can tell you is that the universe is very playful, and that's something that's a message that I teach everybody that I mentor and interact with. The universe is playful. It's not ambitious. It's not going anywhere. It doesn't want to achieve anything. So, what is something that doesn't want to do any of those things because it's infinity? It has nowhere to go and nothing to achieve. So, what is something that is like that? What does that something do? It plays. It wants to amuse itself. It wants to be happy, and that's what we are all about. We're all about that. And when you recognize that part of you, you open up the ability to flow, and flow comes into you as energy and light. So, and from that point on, you can direct it anywhere you want.
Why do you think people are afraid of spirituality?
They don't have a clue what it is. People are afraid of what they don't understand. I was afraid of it. I had no idea. I didn't believe in God when my happened to me. I had no clue what that was. Didn't didn't in a million years could never have said that I had any connection. Or I mean, most of the religious experiences that I had were uh, in the company of my parents and their friends, and all of that was, honestly, it was pretty hypocritical. So I rejected the whole understanding for such a long time that I didn't want to, or have any clue what all that was about. So I did. So I mean, I had no clue, but still, this energy loved me, and gave me one moment that turned this lifetime into something else. So it wasn't the same lifetime. So whatever that was, I molted my skin like a caterpillar and became something else. A transformation. Did
Thank
I
you.
do it? Does a caterpillar consciously molt his skin and become a butterfly? I don't think so. They just kind of go into the chrysalis at a certain time, and because they isolate themselves, they're able to be in their own juices and make those changes internally without any experience of the outside world. And that's sort of what happened to me. And then boom, here I was, into another state, and I had wings. Hey, I could fly and flutter. I could be happy and make others happy. I could land on flowers and suck nectar and enjoy the wind, and the breezes, So it's just some fun moments. The whole thing is a wink of an eye anyway. When you're done with this body, it's all a wink of an eye by the time you're finished.
It's amazing when I hear your story that people complain and they're angry and upset because there's nothing to be upset about. Life
Right.
is like a river and you're just flowing down it.
That's all there is. There's nothing to be angry about. Everything is in point of fact. If you've ever known anybody who's been through really dramatic experiences, if you give them any time or distance between the experience and just say whatever distance that happens to be, a week, a month, a year, whatever, they will tell you that, if they are of kind of consciousness, that it was a gift and not something wrong. So Source puts us through this dark portion of our lives, this night of the soul, whatever you want to call it, dark night of the soul. Source puts us through that to give us Navy SEAL training so that when we come out, we have something that we're really tough about, that is sustainable and that is eternal for us to be able to do whatever it is we are gifted to do. So if for those of you who are out there who are depressed, who are angry, who are fearful, those things, see them as a benefit to you. That's all they are. They are a benefit. And in the long run, you will see that they served you. Even though you may feel like you're going through hell right now, it serves you for something that you're going to be part of, or that you are going to generate as a gift to this species and planet. So, for those of you who are going through any kind of suffering, any kind of pain, know that it is a benefit to you. It's training. So, the moment you change your perspective on it, you open up new channels of energy to see the difference in what you're experiencing and what you have experienced. And you see the gap, and then you also see the solution. And it's a pretty simple experience. Life is pretty simple once you come down to it. It's just that we complicate it, and society gives us the wrong tools to deal with it. Society wants to make us confused, angry, fearful, dramatic, overly concerned or worried, anxious, all those things. They want to do that because it's not in their interest to allow people to be awakened, because when they are, they can't be controlled. So people who are strong in their physical power, whether it be mental or physical power, they have an agenda for what they want to experience in this life, and they are willing to have others serve them for that agenda. But when you become awakened, no one can make you serve anything you don't choose to serve. It's not even possible. So, or you can see any manipulation, any power plays, any difficulties coming from miles ahead. It's like this big steam engine that runs down the road. You can see it a mile away. So nobody has any influence on you that you don't personally empower.
Thank you so much for speaking with me tonight. I really enjoyed it.
You are quite.
Do you have any words of wisdom to leave our audience with?
Each of you is dramatically amazing. So the moment you make that realization, you allow in the energies that make a difference in your life. So please be conscious of that magnificence that you are, because it's pure love. And when we evolve into that state of pure love, which then makes everything okay, and everything that you want comes to you. Simple as that. So the power is to be aware of your internal attention. The results are everything physical is yours to command. I hope that helps anybody out there.
I hope it does too. Thank you so very much for your time tonight.
You are welcome. Well, thank you for having me. And for you guys out there, if you don't get awake, I'm gonna come over there and kick your ass. I'm 6'2" and 220 pounds. No, I'm only kidding. So
Are you 6'2"?
no, I'm not. but it makes good. It makes good dialogue. It
It
makes good.
does.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so very much. Thank you to those who may have watched this or will watch it. And remember, we are sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which is an online organization promoting peace one conversation at a time. And let's wave goodbye. Thank you.
In Japan, konnichiwa.